Welcome back to Detroit's Morning Answer. Josh McConkey, he's a decorated Air Force colonel, combat physician, and best-selling author of Be the Weight Behind the Spear. Over his career, he has logged more than 340 hours as a flight surgeon and 90 combat hours in medical evacuation air assault missions during Operation Iraqi Freedom. His service has earned him the Air Medal and the Army Commendation Medal. Today, he's stepping forward as a candidate for Lieutenant Governor of North Carolina, determined to bring the same discipline and conviction that guided him in the battlefield into public service. Recently, Colonel McConkey has been outspoken about the danger. I wonder if he's related to the NFL football player. Dangers of relaxing standards for foreign trained doctors, warning against shortcuts that could put patient safety at risk. Colonel McConkey, welcome to Detroit's Morning Answer.
Thank you very much. And yeah, I wish I was related to some NFL players. If you go back a few generations, it's possible, but there's Lad McConkey, and then some people may remember the touchdown catch in the 1987 Super Bowl, Phil McConkey.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about him. Yes, so right. I'm old enough to remember that. but Colonel, for our listeners who may not know, when we talk about relaxed standards for foreign trained doctors, we're referring to proposals that will let doctors trained overseas bypass parts of the U.S. process, such as residency programs or full licensing exams, and begin so that they can begin practicing here more quickly. Now you have some supporters who argue that this will help physician shortages, especially in a lot of the rural areas. Why do you believe lowering these requirements is dangerous?
So, I've worked overseas. I've worked with foreign physicians. I've worked in Australia, New Zealand. I've trained physicians, as a professor and an attending for 20 plus years with physicians from all across the world. And on the whole, our American training is clearly the bar. So when you start taking our standards that are clearly higher than everyone else in the world, and you lower those specifically, what you've done is when you lower the standard, you've now set a new standard. Mm. And my concern is that you're telling rural North Carolina that their doctors don't have to pass the same test and don't have to pass the same standard.
Wow.
It doesn't have anything to do with them being foreign physicians. It's why are you having a different lower standard for rural North Carolinians? It doesn't make sense.
Now, is this just specific to North Carolina? And who introduced this? Is this under the current administration, or was this a Biden administration basically rule change?
So this was House Bill 67 here in North Carolina. And there's been some states that have addressed this as well. I came from a very rural state. I was raised in western Nebraska. I was part of a rural health opportunities program. It was called RHOP. And what they did is to address those shortages in rural areas, they prioritized seats in medical school for kids from rural areas because it's pretty common sense. If you have a kid from rural, middle of nowhere, they are much likely to go back to that area because it's home than if you take someone from the inner city. And then you combine that with loan repayment and the huge debt that's incurred from undergraduate school and medical school. If you can help take care of that, people are more likely to go into primary care, and they're more likely to go to rural areas.
Wow.
So North Carolina passed HB House Bill 67, and they removed the residency requirement so that physicians no longer have to pass the United States residency. And then they removed the requirement to pass the USMLE, which is the U.S. Medical Licensing Exam, and that is the bar.
Yeah.
So I'm concerned with that.
I know Michigan created a task force on foreign-trained medical professional licensing, and it's a public act. I know the task force made their final report and recommendations, and House Bill 5613 was created. Now, because nothing has taken concrete form yet as it relates to something like this happening in Michigan. But why is it so important that every doctor in North Carolina, no matter where they're trained, meet the same rigorous U.S. standards before they start treating patients?
You're making life and death decisions. I practiced medicine for 20 plus years. I've seen great physicians. I've seen not so great physicians. But on the whole, if you don't set a standard that has to be met, to practice a specialty that holds people's lives in your hands, then it really should be self-explanatory. I think most people, the majority of people, understand why that standard is necessary. So I don't understand why you wouldn't hold everyone to that standard. Right. And to put it in the most simplest terms, having trained physicians from all over the world, every medical student on planet Earth knows that if you want to practice medicine in the United States, you have to pass that USMLE.
Yeah.
If you haven't taken that test, you either had no intent to practice in the United States or you can't pass it.
Shouldn't the bigger question be, why is there such a shortage of physicians in North Carolina and across this country? What is that? Why is there such a shortage of doctors throughout our country?
I think the changes that you've seen in healthcare over the past several decades, and I started med school in 1999, and the more government intervention, the more you expand CMS, Medicare, Medicaid, government-run healthcare, it becomes inefficient. It doesn't become about the patient anymore. I used to spend 75 to 80% of my time sitting down and talking with people and caring for patients. Now I spend 70 to 75% of my time sitting in front of a computer checking boxes to cover my tail and make sure that I can get reimbursed by CMS, which is Medicare and Medicaid. They literally, any organization will have multiple people whose full-time job is to do nothing but chase the tail for Medicare and Medicaid, which keeps moving the goalposts so they don't have to pay.
Now, I don't know what it's like. I'm a former legislator in Illinois. I don't know what it's like in North Carolina, but I forget the name, the Dr. AMA, I believe, the American Medical Association. They were like a big lobbying group in Springfield, Illinois. And one of the things that they were trying to push through was medical malpractice reform. Is that one of the issues why we don't see a lot of people going to become doctors? Because, I mean, you can make one misstep and your entire career is over, right?
Yes, and you can't be perfect all the time. Now, fortunately, I have never had a medical malpractice lawsuit. I'm very fortunate to practice that long without it. I've seen a lot of lawsuits that were just so frivolous and unbelievable, but the pain that inflicts on a physician financially, emotionally, and their ability to practice when you're second-guessing every single decision, like, oh, my gosh, am I going to get sued for this? It makes it a very high-stress job, in a job that already has a high stress level because people's lives are in your hands and you're making critical decisions. So those liability issues play a part of that as well.
Yeah. You didn't think you were going to come on the show and I wouldn't talk about your candidacy, right? Now, you're stepping into this lieutenant governor's race at a time when I feel like many North Carolinians feel disillusioned with politics. We saw what happened in the last gubernatorial lieutenant governor race. Why is now the right moment for your candidacy?
So 2024 for us in North Carolina, we lost the governor's race, lieutenant governor, attorney general. It was almost a clean sweep.
Yeah. You
feel like the kind of party was burned to the ground, and there are several reasons for that we won't get into.
Yeah.
But something has to rise from those ashes. We need purpose-driven leadership. For me, the lieutenant governor chairs the Department of Education, which is the most important job in the entire state. And we need someone who is in line with North Carolinians, in line with parental choice, holding our schools accountable. We have to have strong public education in North Carolina or we will not be successful.
Yeah. What do you see as the how do I put this? The defining qualities of a lieutenant governor in this political season, and how does your background uniquely equip you, Josh McConkey, for the role?
So, real leadership skills. Leadership matters. You've got so many politicians to get out there and talk a good talk, and they have a great game, but they don't do anything. So we've had multiple lieutenant governors who have bagged out on that role to chair the Department of Education and have done nothing. Myself, as a former professor at Duke University, education is just so important. I've taught so many medical students and residents, and my wife's a teacher. My mom's a teacher. I understand the school system. And we have to have real purpose-driven leadership in North Carolina, and we're lacking that with Josh Stein and Rachel Hunt right now. They're the ones that lock down our schools. They shut down schools. They shut down churches, and they've really fueled the mental health crisis that's crushing an entire generation of North Carolinians. I deal with that anxiety, depression, and suicide in my ER. I dealt with a 14-year-old male last week. My son is 14. That strikes very close to home.
You know, the race has already attracted attention, and so much so that's why you're on the show today, because it attracted my attention. When I saw your background and when I saw the book, I'm like, I mean, I don't know you personally, but I'm like, hey, I read that book. I know this guy. And I had to get you on. What makes your campaign, though, distinct from the others who are either thinking about or currently in the field for lieutenant governor?
As a combat decorated veteran, as an emergency physician, as a military commander, I have a very blue-collar background. I came from nothing. My dad was a railroader. My grandfather was a railroader. My great-grandfather was a railroader. I was the first McConkey to go to college. I know what people are going through. I can relate, and I have real leadership skills, and leadership matters.
I definitely agree with you there. It does matter. Now, your book title, Be the Weight Behind the Spear. What does that phrase mean, and how does it capture your philosophy on leadership?
So be the weight behind the spear. It's my personal leadership ethos. I've been very fortunate to work with special operations, that tip of the spear. You know, these are individuals jumping out of helicopters, taking down bin Laden, rescuing those Thai children trapped in the cave, that soccer team in 2018. When you get to work with those types of individuals, you realize that what makes them so special, so amazing, and gives them the confidence, it's the weight behind their spear. It's the people, their teachers, coaches, volunteers, and families. That's what makes America the best country in the world. That's what makes up American exceptionalism. Oof. And the more people that realize that that role is more important than anything, we will get more people engaged in their communities, teach, coach, volunteer. It'll make America a better place.
You know, your book, it truly doesn't shy away. And I think so many people, and we've seen that in the news recently, you don't shy away from the cost of service. I mean, the physical toll, the emotional strain, the moral weight. Why was it important for you to be so transparent about those realities?
Because that's what people are feeling. And the people that are out there suffering in my emergency departments, on the combat fields, you know, when I was in Iraq in 2007, these stories need to be told. Everybody has a breaking point. Even these special operators who are the mentally and physically toughest human beings on the planet still have suicides in their population. So everybody has a breaking point. Everyone needs a weight behind their spear. And we need to get that message out because this next younger generation is really struggling.
And I think this next generation is going to struggle even more because an individual who's been very impactful in this generation of young people, Charlie Kirk, the assassination of Charlie Kirk, it's left many people shaking, including me. It shook me. I knew Charlie. We weren't best of friends, but anytime I had a question, my daughter wanted to get into a Turning Point USA chapter at her college. I reached out to him. He connected me with everybody that I needed to connect her with. But as someone who has faced life and death moments in combat, how did you personally process this strategy? And what advice would you give to those who are still shook? So
watching those images and watching that video, gosh, when you see that neck injury, I took care of those in Iraq. And to watch that happen here on American soil to just an individual that didn't have a violent bone in his body, that spoke the truth, that kept open dialogue, it's gut-wrenching. I was combine that with 9/11 yesterday. Boy, I was sick to my stomach. I gave 2 speeches. He was clearly on my mind and still remains so. I feel for his family. Just an amazing individual. America lost a an incredible human being, and we just pray for him and his family. And it's really hard to deal with. I'm still struggling.
Josh McConkey, I saw the video and immediately people, because someone sent it to me like right when it happened. And when I saw the shot, I said, he's not going to make that. And the pit in my stomach. And when he was shot, the vitriol, just the nastiness of people, the void of humanity, people with holes in their heart were celebrating this. Some people are framing his death politically, while others see it as a symptom of moral decline in our culture. How do you interpret this dilemma? And what does it say when people cheer the death of a nonviolent person?
So Charlie Kirk spoke truth. He didn't hold any position of power.
No.
He wasn't an elected official. He posed no threat to anyone, and they murdered him.
Yeah.
He was assassinated. Unfortunately, I see some very dark and evil just human beings that I've seen in combat. I see in emergency departments. People do horrific things to each other. And Charlie would not want any violence in his name. We will not let them break us. We will persevere. We will power through this, and we will carry his message. They killed him because he was effective.
Yes.
They killed him because they knew that he was speaking the truth, and we were making progress in this country and getting young people involved in our political process. We will not let that fail. That will continue in his name, and that's what needs to motivate people, not retribution. That's not what he would have wanted. Amen. We are not the party of violence, and that truth will prevail. We have to persevere.
Now, Colonel, final question, and I want you to tell people where they can follow you at the end of this question. But if you were speaking directly to a North Carolina family who feels forgotten and fearful in this moment, whether about healthcare, politics, or the violence we just witnessed, what would your message be about why you're running and why they should trust your leadership to lead them in North Carolina?
Because they matter. God has given them a set of skills. Everyone has different skills. Everyone has something different to give. But decisions and interactions that they have right in their community, people, coworkers, family, everyone around them, they matter. They are the weight behind the spear of this state. I hear them. We hear them. And together we're going to get through this, and we will make North Carolina a better place. We're stronger together.
Wow. Where can people find you, and where can they get the book?
You can go to strongernc.com, and the book is at weightbehindthespear.com, WEIGHT, weightbehindthespear.com. We've got an audiobook, ebook, and the paperback, and that's available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, anywhere books are sold.
Josh McConkey, Air Force Colonel, combat physician, and best-selling author of Be the Weight Behind the Spear. Thank you so much for joining us on Detroit's Morning Answer this morning. Go with God, and I will definitely be praying for your campaign, sir.
Thank you, sir. God bless.
God bless you. Wow. I love leaders. And any time that I hear somebody who's running for office speak to the exceptional nature of who we are as a country, my ears always perk up, because if you don't see the exceptionalism of who we are as a nation, we are exceptional. Do we have our flaws? Have we made mistakes as a nation? Yes, we have, but we figure out how to make them right. We figure out how to right the ship. And I know that that's what will happen after this tragedy with Charlie Kirk as well. And that's why I'm excited. It won't be a very long time that we have with my friend Jonathan Gilliam, but because he loves me so much, he squeezed in, and it's early where he's at. He's on the West Coast, so it's a little bit earlier where he's at. But Jonathan Gilliam is going to join us next to talk about the FBI's role and the security aspect of this. I think any big name person now will definitely have to have a security assessment of wherever they're trying to do. I mean, when you think about what happened with President Trump in Butler, now Charlie in Utah, something has to change. Jonathan Gilliam, former FBI, Navy SEAL, U.S. Marshal. He's going to join us to talk about that next. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.